I'd like to welcome you all to the Canada Fetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorder Research Network, a webinar optimizing employment opportunities and outcomes for people with FASD. Thank you all for joining us. We're pleased to be partnering with the Canada Northwest Partnership and presenting this webinar as part of a larger series of webinars for policymakers. This is the first one we've done that's public, so we're really excited that so many people signed up. This is great. The partnership has renewed its strategy, its strategic plan, and one of the strategies is directly related to employment for folks with FASD, and so that's why we're presenting this today. My name is Darren Jocelyn. I'm going to facilitate the session. I've been involved in FASD policy for more years than I probably care to admit, probably more years than some of you have been alive. And recently, I joined the board of the CanFASD Research Network, and I'm just really pleased to be here and honored to have been asked to facilitate this. So before we get started, we always begin our meetings or events with a land acknowledgement. So we believe that it's an important step in reconciliation to acknowledge traditional treaty lands and recognition of the people of the territory. The Canada FASD Research Network recognizes the historical significance and contributions of Indigenous people and their cultures, and understands the important role that Indigenous communities played in the past, play today, and will play in the future. We acknowledge that we live, meet, work, and play on traditional territories across Canada of many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit, whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries. I personally am in Treaty 6 territory, the traditional land of the Métis and Inuit peoples, and the ancestral land of the Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Dene, and Nakota Sioux. We have an amazing panel today, and it covers a number of different areas that we wanted to talk about related to employment. We have research that explains to us how to support individuals and gives us tools for individuals with FASD. We have an individual with FASD who's going to share his story, and very excited about that. Very excited to have Blair on board. We also have a long-time employment support program, and we have an employer who is currently employing someone with FASD. So what's going to happen is I'll introduce the speakers, and they will do their presentation, and then we're hoping at the end we can at least do a question or two for each one of the presenters. And so let's get started. Our first presenter is Dr. Aamena Kapasi. She is a postdoctoral fellow at the University of Alberta. She's working on the substance use and addictions in FASD population study for her postdoctoral research in partnership with CanFASD. Aamena completed her MA in counseling psychology at the University of Western Ontario, Go Mustangs, and her PhD in school and clinical child psychology at the University of Alberta. Aamena has been conducting FASD research since 2013. Her research focuses on supports and interventions for individuals with FASD. And she was part of the research team at the U of A to develop the employment and FASD report and tools. So at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Aamena for her presentation. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. All right, I'm just going to share my screen here. So yes, my name's Aamena, and I'll be talking today about a research project that looked at supporting employment in adults with FASD. So employment can be a protective factor for many individuals, reducing poverty and dependency in individuals with disabilities. But however, the range of difficulties individuals with FASD have often make it difficult to obtain and maintain employment. And it's always important to remember that individuals with FASD have strengths and weaknesses, just like everyone. And so specifically, individuals with FASD are known to be curious, creative, gregarious, friendly, helpful, good with structure. So, strengths and weaknesses to consider when thinking about employment. But due to cognitive differences, specifically in areas like working memory, impulsivity, attention, and language. Employers may see things like lateness or missed shifts, forgetfulness, incomplete tasks, mistakes in task completion, getting stuck in ways of doing things, recklessness or dangerous decisions, strong emotions under pressure, very slow to complete tasks, messy work, maybe being inconsiderate to others. And so they may conclude that that individual is disinterested, lacking motivation, maybe lazy or careless or mean, and not desiring employment. Instead of an individual who has brain differences and struggling to do the best they can, who wants to succeed and often cares very much about doing well. And so we needed to ask questions around how can we create success-friendly environments for individuals with FASD in employment settings. And this led us to the employment success study. So we conducted a research study to learn information about individuals with FASD who were employed. We decided that it was important to hear about employment success stories to focus on the possibilities of adults with FASD. And so we asked adults with FASD for their employment success stories. Two kind of main questions we asked were, what conditions are people with FASD successful in their employment? And what kinds of positive employment impacts are being achieved by adults with FASD? And so I'm just going to go over some of the major themes that we found in this research. We did publish this research study, and so you can find it online. The major themes found under what are the conditions of success were finding the right fit, using relational supports, identifying as having FASD, and responding to challenges. So I'll just talk about these each a little bit more. Finding the right fit, we really found that to achieve a meaningful job fit, we need to understand the client's strengths and needs, understand the context, setting, and requirements of a job, and the interaction between these elements. So things like consistency, routine, structure, how many hours are required, what's the level of job stress, these are important to consider for finding the best fit. Using relational supports, we really understand that there's a whole team that contributes to the employment journey and shares responsibility for the ups and downs along the way. So this team includes the individual with FASD, their employment professional if they have one, the employer, coworkers, and their own network of family and friends. Positive relationships that support daily living activities support employment. So things like helping with transportation, scheduling, weather requirements, packing a lunch, all those kind of things. Also relationships within the workplace with colleagues and managers who are understanding and supportive can go a long way. The next theme that we found was identifying as having FASD. So not all people with FASD will choose to disclose their diagnosis, but what we found in this research was those that did choose to do that found it beneficial to help their coworkers and their employers understand them and actually start a dialogue about FASD. And lastly, responding to challenges. So being proactive, normalizing workplace accommodations, and kind of reframing accommodations, as normal ways to address areas of difficulty. These are things that were really helpful. Major themes around impacts of employment were increasing autonomy through remuneration, building self-esteem, developing social connections, and becoming FASD advocates. So again, just a little bit more about this. We found that participants liked being paid, and the independence that having money gave them was a really big positive. Building self-esteem, like feeling valued in the workplace, proud to be working, discovering their own strengths while they were on the job, and developing social connections like friendships within the work and even friendships, with customers and things like that, interacting with others in a positive way, and becoming FASD advocates. So by being an individual with FASD in the workplace, increasing hiring and understanding of FASD in that environment. So next, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the next steps of the study, which was to develop an employment guide. And so we integrated the findings from the literature and the employment success study to put together a tool for employment professionals working with individuals with FASD. And so this was like a checklist style guide of important factors to consider using a supportive employment model. So this model really focuses on creating a good fit, as I talked about, which we found is so important, between the employee and employer, and providing individualized guidance to individuals with disabilities. And we piloted the guide with community agencies, received feedback, and came up with kind of a final version, which is available online. I'll just go over quickly the structure of the guide. So this is an overview, but I'll go through each of these factors. So first thing we did was decide that before even preparing for employment, other priorities, including health, housing, etc., need to be understood and supported. This doesn't mean that the individual needs to have, everything in perfect order to seek employment, but there needs to be an understanding of the client's general life circumstances and stability level so that all supports can be in place. And then we have work factors, which are divided into preparing, obtaining, and maintaining employment. So these three main stages of employment, we discussed the importance of focusing on each phase to ensure the client's ready to move forward and continues to be in a good place to do so. There are unique things that need to be addressed at each stage, and the employment professional working with the individual can use this guide to kind of follow through the employment journey. So some of these things, activities within each stage, there are certain activities to focus on, and we created lists of things under each category that we think would be helpful for employment professionals to do to best support their clients. And so under employability skills, these are things like communication and social skills, stress management, time management, self-advocacy, teamwork, some of these kind of skills that we can try to develop. Job fit included things like what are the client's career goals and interests, what's the hours and schedule, required trainings maybe that they need to have, etc. Job search, we had specific recommendations on looking for employment, what to look for to find that best fit. And then relationships and conflict resolution. So, this includes, again, that whole team approach of the client and the employer, the employment professional, their support network, and all the different people involved. So the guide can be used in multiple ways. There's really no right or wrong way. We just developed it as a way to understand the research, put together kind of a usable, accessible resource for people. And so it could be, used as a record for that client, as a checklist to monitor project, create action plans for reflection on, how it's going, continuity of care, or whatever ways that that people can think of. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about some future research that's happening with employment and FASD. So a team in Australia has done some work using our employment, the information we gathered, and kind of taking it further. And so they're focusing on justice and employment and an FASD justice and employment project. There's a scoping review being led by Dr. Annabelle Nanko at the University of Western Australia. And then there's a team that's working under a program called Patchwork Employment Pathways. And so this program has referrals from the Department of Justice. They work with the participant to understand employment motivations, goals, and then support them through the employment process, ensuring for mentoring and support. And this project hopes to work with people who are pre-release stage to help them with these life skills and gaining employment after. So just some future work that's being done looking at employment and justice. So just a few resources here. I believe that you'll receive the link to the employment guide that I was talking about earlier. And that is available on the CanFASD website. So if you're interested in learning more about that work or using it, you can find it there. And then here is the link to Patches, the employment and justice project I was mentioning. So on that website, there's it's built to be an online educational resource that aims to increase knowledge of FASD, challenge attitudes towards people with FASD with a criminal history, and provides tips, tools, and strategies to support cognitive difficulties in the workplace. So another really good resource to use if you need it. And so just some key takeaways. We know that individuals with FASD can find employment success. It's not about if, it's about how, right? Finding that best fit, using our relational supports. It's the shared responsibility of the individual with FASD and the organizations and the community all together to help this be a success. And we know that providing resources to employment professionals working with individuals with FASD will increase opportunities for success. And that's it for my presentation. Thank you very much.
Our next presenter is Blair Charters. He's an FASD advocate who lives in Red Deer, Alberta. He's been employed as a prep cook at Taco Loft in Red Deer for almost 2 years. And prior to that, he worked at Earl's in Red Deer for 20 years. He's a public speaker. He's been speaking for 9 years, hosted many speech nights in Red Deer for about 5 years, encouraging others to share their journeys. He's spoken at conferences in Calgary and Vancouver. He's given many talks in many communities, including First Nations communities, spreading education and awareness of FASD. Blair received a Central Region, both a Central Region and Provincial Leadership Award from Persons with Developmental Disabilities in 2014, and a Premier's Council Award of Excellence for Public Awareness of Disabilities in 2016. 2016 was the same year that he wrote his book, Beautiful Struggles, story about his journey being affected with FASD, the challenges and triumphs. Blair continues to be a wonderful advocate as he shares his story with messages of positivity and hope. So without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to Blair.
Do I just start talking?
Go ahead, yeah.
Do I show up on the screen?
Yep.
Hi, good morning. Today I would like to share with you 3 of my struggles that I've had to deal with my whole life. I would like to share with you amazing bread story and talk to you about change and routine and how those 2 things are very important. So I've worked at Earl's Restaurant for 20 years and I always wanted to be the baker there. And after a few years, I finally got my shot to be the baker. One of the very first things you have to learn when you're a baker, you have to learn to make focaccia pan bread. And this focaccia pan bread was a horrible nightmare. And it took me 3 years to perfect this pan bread the way it's supposed to be made. And that is only a slight exaggeration. And this bread was so frustrating. And I swear this bread was a bully to me, made fun of me, teased me, called me names, I'm sure of it. And it was just so frustrating to make this bread all the time. And I had people tell me how ugly and how horrible this bread was to make and how they couldn't use it. And that made me very upset, but there was no way I was going to give up because this is what I wanted to do. This is my goal in life. So every day I worked on it and worked on it. And it's like one day I just magically woke up and magically went to work and magically got it. And it turned out beautiful. It turned out really perfect. And the same people that told me my bread was ugly and horrible told me how beautiful and wonderful my bread is and how they could use it. And it was like the greatest day ever. And like I said, it was one of my biggest struggles ever, but one of my biggest accomplishments ever. People with feed alcohol, it's very hard with change, and change is very hard with people with feed alcohol. And I had the same boss at Earl's Restaurant for 20 years, and he was a great boss. He knew everything about me, how my brain worked, my patterns. He knew about feed alcohol. He knew what to do if I was upset to make me happy, which is very important. And he was actually a good friend, and he had to retire, and which means I had to get a new boss, which I did not like at all, because you do have the same boss for 20 years. And one day, and then the very next day, you have a brand new boss that knows nothing about you, knows nothing about feed alcohol, how your brain works, doesn't know what to do if you're upset to make you happy. And not only that, it's like, who are you? I don't know you. I don't like you. I don't want to like you. And you're telling me what to do. I know you're the new boss and that's your job, but still I've dealt with the old boss for 20 years and listened to him. And it's hard listening to someone new that comes in your life out of nowhere, basically, right? People who feed alcohol need to be with the same person, dealing with them all the time. And so that was very frustrating, but I only had to deal with him for like 2 years because in 2020, I got laid off, which is actually a really good thing because I started my brand new job with my boss and my friend I've known forever. And he knows everything about me and everything about feed alcohol. And he's a really great guy. But the frustrating part is that you go from 20 years in one restaurant to the very next day in another restaurant. Nothing's organized. You don't know where anything is. After being in the same restaurant for a long time, nothing moved. He knew where everything was and nothing changed. and then you go into a new restaurant where everything's disorganized, you don't know where anything is, and it's very frustrating. But I talked to my boss and let him know my frustration, and we organized everything and made it so everything was a lot easier for me, and it turned out really good. And then a year later, I was like 10,000 times more organized than I was a year ago, right? So it's all about routine with people who feed alcohol. We definitely need routine to make our lives easier, especially with hygiene. Hygiene is very important. Basically, routine is hygiene, or hygiene is routine. When COVID hit, I was working way less, and then so I was getting on a pattern of waking up, brushing your teeth, have a shower, getting changed, stuff like that, everyday routine. And there was like 2 days in there where I forgot to change my shirt. I just totally forgot about it because I fell into that routine of what you do every day, every morning, right? And so people who feed alcohol, we need help with our routine. We need help with hygiene, definitely. And because we can't do it on our own, we need help with that. And we got to try to do it on our own, and we need people to help us with that too. And like I said, it's all about routine, because routine is hygiene and hygiene is routine. And yeah, we just got to take care of ourselves and take care of a routine, because that's very important to do. And that's all I got for now. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Blair. What a great presentation. I really do appreciate what you shared with us today. We do have a question from the group. We have 2 questions, but Don, I think your question might be better for one of our other presenters, Lisa. So I'm going to leave that one there. But Blair, what advice would you give to youth with FASD who don't know what they're going to do after high school?
Talk to people, talk to the many networks that they have, because we have in Red Deer the Feed Alcohol Network, and there's many different places that you could talk to around Red Deer that help out people with feed alcohol. They can help you get a job. They can help you with living, with finding a place to live, how to communicate, how to talk to people, how to deal with the things in life that we have to deal with. So there's many, many places that you could go in Red Deer to talk to those people.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Blair. There's another question here that asks, what kind of support do you find the most helpful when you're dealing with big changes to routine?
It helps to have people know about feed alcohol. Like I said, when I started my new job, with my best friend, and it is my boss. I've known him my whole life, over 20 years. And because of that, he knows about feed alcohol, because I've talked to him many times about feed alcohol. We've researched a lot of alcohol. He's been to many of my presentations. And so it's good to talk to somebody like a caregiver or a support worker or somebody that knows about feed alcohol. It's very important to talk to them. It's very important to get your research about feed alcohol. If you go to YouTube or wherever to get your research, it's very important to find out about feed alcohol that way.
Excellent. I'm going to ask you one last question that's come up here. What motivates you the most?
Myself, for so many years, like I was always told, like, you can't do this, you can't do that, you feed alcohol. Why even bother? Why try? You'll fail. And so I got that programmed in my head that why should I try? All this fails, so why should I try anything? And that was a really crappy attitude to have. And I just took that word can't right out of my head, and it doesn't exist. And so I motivate myself. I'm number one in motivating myself, because I have a lot of motivators, but I'm like my number one motivator. I make sure that I want to do these things and motivate myself to do them.
Great. Thanks so much, Blair. I just wanted to let you know that you're getting some props for some of the things that you said, and one of them was hygiene is routine. people seem to be really loving that quote. So thanks a lot for sharing that with us, and thanks for sharing your story. We may come back later on and ask you a few more questions, if that's okay with you.
Cool.
But really appreciate you sharing your story, and congratulations to you and all of your successes. Okay, our next speaker is Lisa Murphy. Lisa is the Executive Director at the Lakeland Centre for FASD. The center's operated a supported employment program for adults with FASD since 2012. Through this program, they've learned a lot about the challenges and strategies to support individuals in employment situations. She's worked in the field of FASD for over 18 years. So she started when she was about 4. Lisa's history with the center has included advocating, coordinating services for children, complex youth and adults diagnosed with FASD and their families, consultation, and data collection. Lisa also played a key role in the development and organization of Lakeland Summer Camp. As Executive Director, Lisa oversees the day-to-day operations of the center and its FASD prevention, diagnostic, and intervention programs. So I'd like now to hand it over to Lisa.
Thank you, Darren. That was a lovely introduction. 18 years starting at 4. I like that. I'm going to hold on to that one for a little bit. I'll just try and make sure I share the right screen. And I have to say thank you, Blair, so much for sharing your story. That was amazing. And I honestly don't know how I'm going to follow that one, but I will do my best. So I just want to start by telling you a little bit about our center. So the Lakeland Centre for FASD is located in Cold Lake, which is about 350 kilometers northeast of Edmonton, Alberta. We serve a 300-kilometer radius in the Lakeland region, and our region includes 7 First Nations communities, 4 Métis settlements, a small city, a military base, and about 25 small towns and hamlets. The Lakeland Centre opened its doors back in 2000, and at that time we offered diagnostic and follow-up support services. Much like the rest of the country, the Lakeland region had very few FASD services at that time. And so we developed services and continue to do so that we can meet the needs of our clients. So it's actually back in 2009 that we launched our employment services program. This program is much different than other employment services that you may see in your communities. We support the most complex individuals with FASD or possible FASD. Complexities can vary, but they often include homelessness, addictions, mental health concerns, childcare, transportation needs, and even justice involvement. We support our clients to find and keep meaningful employment that aligns with their unique talents. The employment coordinator works with the employers to ensure that they understand the needs of each employee with FASD. And we also offer a pre-employment group for individuals who might not be quite ready for employment. So when we talk about supports for the individual, we usually introduce the idea of finding employment interests at the beginning of the conversation with the individual. So right at the very beginning, talking about employment opportunities that match the interests and abilities is important to foster that success. From here, we work on building work readiness skills such as resume building, interview and communication skills. Often we will work through those skills with the clients so that they can really get that hands-on opportunity. We also assist with gathering important documentation that may be required for work, including identification, social insurance number, banking information. And of course, we connect individuals with the appropriate employment, whether that's paid or volunteer opportunities. We also find job shadowing opportunities to give that hands-on learning. So as I said earlier, for those that are not quite ready for employment, we also offer a pre-employment group once a week. Our personalized support and group training is focused on building an employment readiness skills along with life and social skills. This includes workplace behaviors, goal setting, resume building, team building, professionalism, interview skills, and self-care. The groups are really important. There's lots of discussion that happens through there to help our individuals really understand what it is that an employer wants when they're in those job sites. And then supporting the employer. So supporting the employer is essential to employment success. Understanding FASD and the unique needs of each employee ensures a successful placement. So our services work with the employer to identify strengths and offer strategies for some of those complex situations. So let's talk about some of the challenges or barriers to employment. Individuals with FASD do have some brain differences. So, due to poor memory, the individual may forget to go to work. They may forget to come back to work after a break, or they may be, or that they may even not realize that they need to come back to work after they've been paid. Some of the barriers include, or challenges include, showing up to work on time. So being able to know what time you need to leave the house with enough time to get to work for the beginning of your shift. Understanding the social atmosphere at work may be different than at home. So knowing to ask your friends not to show up and to visit during work hours, or that the individual may not be able to, or may need support, knowing that they can't just leave during the middle of a shift because their friends showed up to hang out. Being able to keep busy or move to another task when one is complete, or predicting the follow-up tasks that could be done. Identifying needs. They may have difficulty expressing themselves well. And then for many of our clients, they do very, very well in those supported settings. And so doing well often gets the individual with FASD promoted. This is great, but also has new responsibilities and tasks that the person may not be ready for or supported to complete. With social difficulties, having a criminal record in addition to a disability can present additional challenges when finding meaningful employment. The interests and abilities may align well with an opportunity. However, due to criminal history, not necessarily viewed as an ideal to hire. Many adults with children, and many adults have children to care for, and so arranging childcare and ensuring this is appropriate and affordable can be a barrier. Some individuals have unhealthy relationships with their spouses and partners that need to be managed for the workplace. Employers don't necessarily take kindly to an upset partner showing up at the workplace to finish a discussion with the individual. Because of a lack of healthy role models, some individuals have a hard time understanding the concept of employment. And the concept of giving back to the community, like volunteering, which can build skills, is also quite foreign. dressing appropriately for the job, or finding appropriate attire that's affordable to the immediate budget. Some other employment barriers include transportation and communication. And these two are actually very challenging areas for our employment support workers to help with. Finding reliable transportation to the place of work can be challenging when you live in the country, or even in a town that doesn't have public transportation. This happens quite often in rural Alberta. Having a cell phone is great, but if you don't have the minutes, then it's difficult to communicate with your employer. Or we have many clients that often change their phone number. So again, trying to connect with your employee is quite challenging, and this creates barriers for maintaining employment. Many individuals we work with are also very transient, couch surfing. So getting to and from work, or getting to work from various locations is difficult and requires quite a bit of planning. So how do we navigate these challenges? Well, first and foremost, understanding the unique abilities and the needs of the individual with FASD. Every individual has various abilities. Persons with FASD are known for having a number of different strengths, including being hardworking, determined, friendly, non-judgmental, and likable. Employers have been known to say that the employee with FASD is the hardest working individual they've ever had. Employers have been also share that customers really enjoy having the person's sense of humor brighten their day, that the other staff are motivated by the employee's positive attitude with FASD, and everyone works better together. Employers have shared that once a task is learned, nobody does it better than the individual with FASD. It's essential that we learn the unique needs that the individual has, so that appropriate strategies and supports can be put in place to ensure that success. It's important to work with each person and learn their interests. If there's no interest, then the employee is not going to return to work. Support workers should determine the skills required for the specific employment opportunity. Remember to prioritize the individual's needs. Employment might not be the priority. So working with the individual to identify immediate needs is essential. Are there justice needs that must be worked through first? Addictions, mental health? It is also the responsibility of the employment worker to find the right match between the supervisor and the employee in an area of interest for the person. So we have had much success with employment opportunities, making those connections, finding what the client really enjoys. And some of these employment options include janitorial help, kitchen, construction, school, daycare, and even assisting in veterinary clinics. Employment training is really, really important. This helps understand the specific needs of the individual with FASD. And we need to really look at each scenario, maybe having one person that gives the employee direction rather than several bosses. That's very important. Too many bosses can complicate the situation and the instruction. Having limited people in the environment to reduce distraction, and providing direct tasks to do that don't change on a regular basis. So keep that consistency going. With support, individuals with FASD have very successful employment experiences. And so one story I'd like to share is about a client, let's call him Paul. Paul has been connected to our center for several years, and in 2020 he expressed interest in starting his own business. Paul enjoys the outdoors and is a very hard worker. He and the employment worker worked out a plan that supported his interests and abilities, which is lawn care and snow removal. They developed posters and business cards, which Paul shared with businesses and people around the community. Paul has secured several contracts, including 3 with local businesses and a number of individuals. He is very busy, and in fact, he has had to turn down some contracts so that he doesn't burn out. Paul remains in contact with our center. We check in with him regularly, and he now reaches out to us when supports are required. And I see I'm out of time, so my very last thing that I wanted to share is we have one other service that Lakeland offers, which is a mocktail service. And this mocktail bar offers a great tasting non-alcoholic drink option at various events for those who wish to make mine a mocktail. We encourage our clients to participate in this mocktail service, as it provides an opportunity to obtain direct experiences in work and in working with the public in a structured professional environment, while simultaneously promoting education and awareness about the dangers of prenatal alcohol exposure. And so, yeah, there you go.
Great, thank you so much. We do have a number of questions that are still coming in, but we're going to move on to Tara, and I'm hoping that we'll have time to come back and ask some more questions of Blair and yourself and the other presenters. So at this point, I would like to introduce Tara Baker. She is an employer of a wonderful individual who has FASD. She's the founder and longtime volunteer of the White Court Lunchbox program here in Central Alberta. She's a frontline worker supporting individuals with disabilities. She and her husband are the guardians to an adult with a disability, and she would like to share today some of her experiences of employing an individual with FASD. So thank you very much for joining us, Tara. It's all yours.
Oh, thanks for having me. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, really excited and proud to be here on behalf of the Community Lunchbox Society and just being a part of an always much needed conversation. And just a little bit about the Community Lunchbox program. It was started here in White Court in 2004 with the goal of helping kids learn better on a full stomach. And then over the years, really just building a small army of volunteers. And then in 2013, we were able to start our first paid employment. And then I did want to note that one of our employees happens to have FASD. I did get her permission to speak today because it's always important to speak with, not for. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that. And so creating different inclusive opportunities, whether it's volunteer or employment, became a really central part and is now one of our 4 pillars of the Community Lunchbox Society. And over the years, it's been a variety of different things, but what specifically do we do now is we have a bottle sorting garage, and we currently have 4 part-time meaningful employment opportunities. And specifically, what does our employees do? I'm going to speak as a group instead of as individuals, because everybody that is part of our team has different barriers, and they are similar but different, but I want to keep some privacy. So if I tell a story, it could be about any one of our awesome staff. So bottle picking up, bottle sorting, and bottle inventory is a big part of what our staff do. And I would say, like, what are some accommodations or things that we have done to ensure successful employment and long-term employment is that we absolutely meet our employees where they're at and try and foresee any difficulties. And if we don't foresee them and they happen to come up, we modify our programming and to ensure that their needs are met and they're feeling supported. And so one example is one person just wasn't completing all the tasks, and we just said, like, what's going on? Like, you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What about 6, 7, 8, 9? And he shared, and he says, well, I don't read. And this was years ago. And so that day we changed all of our instructions into pictures. So all of our instructions and all of our details are in picture format and in line. And then another example is somebody was struggling to get to work on time, and nobody's ever in trouble. And so we said, like, how come you're not getting to work on time? And it was the bus schedule. So we modified our start time to make sure that it works for our community transit system, because that just makes sense. And then one thing that we try and do as a society and as employers is we set standards and accountability, and everybody's in charge of writing on their own timesheets. So when somebody was struggling with their timesheets, we modified it so it was simplified and easier for them to do, because that's part of being an employee and a responsible employer, as far as we thought. Definitely routine, definitely schedule, and definitely celebrating all the wins. And so I wanted to make sure that part-time meaningful employment doesn't necessarily have to mean a lot of hours. Part-time meaningful employment can mean customized employment and very few hours a week, and it's whatever works for everybody. A really important part of being an employer is making sure transportation and safe transportation is part of it. And we're very lucky, and actually when we bought our building, we did it on purpose so it was right across from the bus stop. I'm nervous, so I just keep rambling, but that's okay. One part that we're doing is when there is an employment opportunity that comes up, somebody wants to join our team, it's finding out what all their strengths are. And we try and be completely strength-based, and recognizing that not everybody can be a 10 at everything. And so when we generally work in a team of 4, and somebody will sort the water bottles, somebody will sort the cans, somebody will sort the glass, and then somebody will kind of just organize and clean up the garbage and work around and everything. And then one of the coolest stories is somebody that counts all the bottles, like the actual water bottles. One day we said, okay, well, there's juice boxes here. Can you count those now? And it was like, well, I don't know how to count juice boxes. And so we said, well, but they're all the same. They're 10 cents. And then so we had to practice. And it's recognizing that just because somebody can count 160 water bottles, you can't presume that they're going to be able to count 160 juice boxes, because they look different, they feel different, their routine is different. So we started out and we said, okay, let's count to 50. And so we started counting to 50, and then we just dropped that into the bin. And then we said, let's do another 50. And then once you get to 3 50s, you only have to add 10 more. And then we all did like a happy dance, because it's those, oh yeah, I'm totally nervous. Yeah. It's those, you have to be able to try and then be able to do it. And then now that person can do juice boxes all on their own. And it might sound like something small, but it's big and it's important to an organization when we literally sort bottles. And there's another person who doesn't read or write, has difficulties with other things, but he's very strong. And so we always try and celebrate everybody's strengths. And when somebody's emptying their bin, he's always there, and he's always lifting the bags for them. And then another thing that we try and do with accountability with everybody is sometimes, and it's not everybody, but sometimes they'll say, oh, you just need to talk to my worker. And we, as an organization, try and ensure like, no, we can talk to you, your worker can come with you for support for sure, but we try not to, we try to put our employee as our first person of contact, if that makes any sense, just so that they can, no, I literally just struggle with talking, so that's okay. We try and be their first point of contact, and that a lot of our employees are very well supported. Some are, some aren't, but they're our employee, and as an employer, we don't feel it's appropriate to talk to other people about issues or paychecks and stuff, that they can bring somebody in to talk to us about it, if that makes any sense. I probably only talk, how many minutes do I have left? I could talk for days, and I'm just rambling on, but I think...
No, you're good. You've got 5 or 6 minutes. Go for it.
Okay, I'm going to take a drink of water. And before this, when I was getting permission from our staff to have this conversation, we do always make a point that it's okay to be yourself. Like today I'm nervous. Well, and not necessarily even nervous. I just struggle speaking in crowds. But it's also okay to be yourself. And so, and another awesome story is the other day, somebody was lifting a bag and I said, holy cow, I said, you are so strong. And she looked at me and she goes, I was born like that. And so we all just giggle, and we're really lucky. And I think that one thing that I think that we do well and that we're super proud of is that we've normalized part-time meaningful employment in our community. And we've created the conversation. And another thing that we've talked about as a group, and being protective of what we do and being protective of how it's communicated out to everybody, is that we collectively agree that it's okay to be a big deal, and it's okay to be proud, and it's okay to highlight people's strengths and successes. And I guess the only advice I'd have for others is to advocate and support and be proud if you do. And if if you're a parent or a guardian of somebody that's struggling to find employment, it will happen, and it just definitely takes time. And I think it's the advocating for customized employment, I guess. And then that's it. I could talk for days, and that's it. I'm totally open to questions.
Well, there are a question or two for you, so I think that we'll go into that. But first of all, thank you so much for sharing your story and the story of your team. And I think that's just such a great way to put it, team. Definitely, in my experience with FASD, is that it's really all about team. And I can tell you, you are getting a ton of accolades in the chat. I don't know if you could see it or have had a chance to look, but there's sure a lot of fans out there for what you're doing, Tara. And I just think it's fabulous that you've had the time to share it with us. So thank you once again to all of the panelists. This has been a really great session, and we're getting all kinds of positive feedback in the chat. So I'm really glad that I had an opportunity to hear you all speak and to participate in this. I'd also like to thank each one of the folks who joined us on the webinar. This has been extremely successful. I think that we're all thrilled with the number of people who came and have stayed. So that's fabulous. Just wanted to let you know that CanFASD is hosting a series of websites of interest to clinicians, caregivers, service providers, people with FASD. So to get more information on the webinars, you can go to their website at www.canfasd.ca or follow us on social media. And we hope that you will join us in future webinars. Before you go, if you don't mind indulging me for a little bit, this is a story that I like to share. And it's not FASD specific, but it's something that I've shared for years when I've been speaking about this experience. When my oldest son, who is now 24 and 6'5", when he started to play hockey, and he was about 4 years old, and he had an ice time, and we were driving home, and I said to him, did you have fun, buddy? And he said, oh yeah, I had so much fun. And of course, the typical hockey dad, I said, well, it's too bad you didn't get any goals today. He said, no, Dad, I got 6 goals. Well, I knew he wasn't even on the ice for some of the goals that were scored, but I said to him, well, how do you figure that, buddy? And he said to me, well, hockey is a team sport, and my team scored 6 goals. So I guess that means I got 6 goals. And the reason that I share that story is not just because it's cute, but it actually was at the time when we were developing the strategic plan in FASD, and it really struck me because in order for us to be successful when addressing the issues that are related to FASD, we need to be a team. And it doesn't matter if you're the individual who's living with FASD, or if you are a support, professional support, if you are a volunteer support, if you are a caregiver, a parent, if you're a sibling. In order for us to be successful, we really need to think about the team and how it comes together. And so it's always interesting, and I've always said this, you know, I have the 2 most beautiful and intelligent boys in the province of Alberta, and we do an annual survey of their parents and confirm it all the time. And it's just great when you can learn something like that that's so insightful from such a little fella. So it really impacted me. And it was at the time when we were working so hard on that plan. And as it came together, I saw more and more that he gets it as well as anybody. So I'd just like to thank you all for attending. I wish you all a great day and a fabulous weekend. And I hope that you found this helpful and that you'll seek out some of the resources that we've talked about. So take care, everybody.